Yo, what's good, everybody? So, in today's video, I want to talk about why I don't believe in common sense politics anymore. And for those of you who have watched my videos before, or maybe regular viewers of the channel, however many or however few there are of you, this isn't really like a thought out video. This is very rambly, very much off the top of my head. And I don't have a script or anything like that. And most of my other videos usually are very scripted, a lot of sort of high octane editing, that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a bit more of like a rambly, more just off the top of my head sort of video. So just bear with me, okay? So don't expect a lot of thorough research and that kind of thing. But I just wanted to round off the year with a bit more of like a rambly, sort of more authentic meditation or reflection on some things that I've been feeling lately, or things that I've found to be pertinent and relevant in my life, that maybe just talking about it could be of some use, or other people could find some relatability as well. So back to the topic of this video: why I don't believe in common sense politics anymore. Now, what prompted me to make this video is a series of things, and I'll just put them into context very quickly. So, for the last few months, I've taken a break from social media. I haven't posted on YouTube as much. Now, that's more so down to just busyness in my life. But then I have made the conscious effort to sort of get away from things like Instagram or TikTok and Twitter and those kinds of things, but even limiting or being more selective of the things that I watch and the content that I consume, whether it be on a platform like YouTube or something else. And what I've found so far in this time frame, that I've also now carried over into sort of my everyday life. You know, at first it was like a trial, and now it's a bit more permanent. That is just kind of the way I live now. I'm not really on social media all that much. But for that period, sort of towards the latter half of this year, I've been a lot more reflective in my own personal life. You know, I'm reading the books that I have on my shelf. I'm not just putting them away, just like keeping them in storage and never reading them, you know. And the books that I am reading, I'm reading a lot more deeply, a lot more engagingly. I feel like my own inner voice isn't as starful as it was before, or just sort of fading into the loud shouting matches of political toxicity online, or that sort of thing. So I feel like I've been able to retain my own inner voice and grapple with my beliefs more authentically and sincerely in that regard, and very much remain in this state of reflective, contemplative observance of everything, if that makes sense. Not to get too philosophical, but like, I've been a lot more reflective and delving into things more deeply, and a lot more introspective and these kinds of things. And these are qualities that I think I usually harbor or sort of possess, but oftentimes, like I said, sort of lose grasp with my own inner train of thought, because it's at some point I'm just echoing somebody else's opinion of some political take or some philosophical position online, instead of actually just thinking about what I actually believe, my own personal beliefs, and analyzing and scrutinizing my own beliefs instead of adopting somebody else's. Now, to just put that into context, now, a couple of days ago, I came across a post on the Novara Media YouTube channel, which is like this leftist political organization or leftist YouTube channel, and some of the content they make is pretty good. And you know, they make some informative, some insightful videos. And on the whole, you know, I respect their YouTube channel, and I think they make good content. But I came across a post a few days ago about the political victories of the left, and I just thought it was very weird. I just thought it was a very weird way of framing things, and they're talking about things like Marxists eliminating poverty in India, the presidential election in Ireland with I can't remember the lady's name, forgive me, but the socialist president coming to power now, and you know, like Mandani's electoral win in the mayoral elections in New York. And, you know, I think these things are good. You know, these are noteworthy landmark achievements even, you know, and are worthy of celebration and plaudits. But then when the headline is not the causes themselves, but the moral and team branding of this being like a victory for the political left, I just think, where is politics right now in the world? And I feel like this sort of reflective path that I've taken in my own personal life has allowed me, like I say, to be more reflective and sort of stepping back away from the toxicity of online politics and online social media discourse and the reactivity of all of that. Coming back to it afterwards, when I see something like this is a political win for the left, I just think this is so meaningless, so pointless, and this just comes across so corny to me. Even though, again, let me just preface, I'm actually left-leaning in my politics. It's not that I'm a conservative and I just see something relating or pertaining to the left and I just think, oh, that's bad. That tendency to just moralize or pathologize one side of the political spectrum just by virtue of that polarization or by virtue of that opposition to your beliefs. And just being away from social media and like the overarching culture war that characterizes basically all politics online, and then coming back to it, it just feels so shallow. And this is what I mean when I say I don't really trust common sense politics anymore. Or again, not to be smug or like that I'm elevating myself into a position where I like sit omnisciently above the pettiness of partisan politics or something like that. But when going back to the Navarro thing of these being political victories for the left, when these things are framed as victories for the left, like, honestly, I don't care. Like, I detest bipartisanship. I have political beliefs, right? And arbitrarily, those political beliefs line up with other political beliefs that are on a political spectrum, and those beliefs just happen to be on the left side of that spectrum. And there is this arbitrary designation for groups of people who share similar or overlapping beliefs. And I happen to fall on the side that is often called like left wing or progressive and that kind of thing. But I don't feel any kinship towards the left. And I don't feel, at least now what has happened, at least in my own personal life, stepping away from social media, I don't feel pressured or committed to any ideological baggage that comes with being a so-called progressive. Like I'm not going to agree with absolutely everybody just because we're on the same side of the political fence, and demonize or pathologize again or moralize people who are on the opposite side of that political spectrum and then just attack them just because of their polarization from my side of the political spectrum. I think some people on the right say some abhorrent things, and I think some people on the right say some pretty profound things, or are capable of like offering insight and knowledge or wisdom, and I don't think it's just limited to people on my side of the political fence. And I know the fact that I have to actually like say that out loud and like justify why I think other people who differ from me politically are capable of producing intelligent thoughts or having or possessing profound insights about certain aspects of life. It seems stupid, but honestly, that's how it feels to a lot of people. At least now, in my own case, that's how it's felt before. As a leftist, at least beforehand, before I took a break from social media. And I think also I'm just in that process still. I'm very young and I'm maturing from year to year. And I think before, I felt committed, or I felt almost this fear, not of ostracism or anything like that, but like there is a pressure, I feel like, when you present yourself politically in a certain way to like conform and appease those people who are a part of that like political clique or faction online. And that's very much characteristic of the way politics is nowadays, especially when you take into context like just the overarching culture war, the binary conflict of left versus right, and everything being framed as either left versus right. And also sort of the outcasting or ostracization of people who call themselves like enlightened centrists or whatever. And not just, thinking independently and for yourself. I might disagree with somebody who's on my side of the political spectrum and actually have grounds for that disagreement, and be able to disagree cordially and respectfully without it turning into, again, like some kind of a shouting match. And then going back to that earlier statement or the earlier issue I took with the sort of framing of these causes in and of themselves as victories, falling under this branding of team left versus team right. And there is this quote by Friedrich Nietzsche, and I just wrote it down on a piece of paper here, just so I don't forget for the video, that basically encapsulates what I'm also trying to get at. And it basically goes as follows, and it's found, I believe it's aphorism number 38 in Gay Science. So if you want to just check it out, you can just go to aphorism 38. I believe it's that one. And it basically goes as follows. When one considers how the energy of young men needs to explode, one is not surprised to see them decide so unsubtly and so unselectively for this or that cause. What thrills them is the sight of the zeal surrounding a cause, and, so to speak, the sight of the burning match, not the cause itself. And this encapsulates perfectly what I mean about that one specific issue I'm talking about now, with like the framing as these causes as victories for the left or the right, where a lot of the times people will like get into politics, not because they actually harbor any, and not because of any fervent or like authentic ambition to like change the political order or something, or not because they are aligned with some noble moral cause for the sake of that cause, but for the belonging, for the thrill of it, sacrificing yourself and your freedoms for something larger than yourself, and the kind of the binding force and the allure that comes with like revolutions and these societal epoch-defining transformations that happen every few hundred years or so. And translating this tendency into maybe ancient times in more traditionalistic, militaristic cultures, where it's like, you want to sacrifice yourself for the fatherland and go and fight in a war that you had sort of no part in bringing about, but yet you are throwing yourself onto the front line, and with all your chivalry and patriotism and nationalism, and it just feels so good and powerful, and it's really attractive. And I feel like a lot of the times, especially with the team branding, this like binary framing of everything political that ever happens as like left or right plays into this kind of dynamic. And I feel like it's also indicative of the participants within that ideology or that group. And it gets to my other point. Like, I don't care that the reduction in poverty is a political victory for the left. I care that there are fewer people who are poor now, I care for the causes in themselves. And like I said earlier, I feel no kinship to the left, whatever entity that may be or whatever that actually is, And this is very reminiscent of another sort of Nietzschean insight that I found when it comes to his conception of the party man. The guy who maybe in Nietzsche's time would have woken up and read the newspaper, who's like this sort of bundle of slogans espoused by his political party or by the conventional morality. And a guy who sort of it just goes with the flow, and very much partakes in political discourse like the gossip of the day. The same way many people in modern times sort of delve into politics online, and again, not because of their fervent convictions for these particular causes, but because it's thrilling and it's engaging and it's orienting, and it's like an expression of their identity, and they come to affiliate with that. And the party man, again, for Nietzsche, is like this guy who just doesn't really think for himself. He is just like this buffoon who just sort of sides with one political party, who like aligns with the majority on purpose by virtue of them being a majority, who has essentially no capacity, or whose capacity has been thwarted to think independently and for themselves. Again, who, sort of reminiscent of that other passage that I quoted, is just sort of attached to the kind of zeitgeist that surrounds, or the zeal that encompasses a particular cause, and wanting to not sort of be aloof and away from everything, but be sort of up to date with like the gossip and the political gossip of the day, and that sort of thing, as opposed to being more reflective and focusing more on untimely virtues, as it were, being more introspective and scrutinizing yourself, and not being afraid to stand out from the crowd. And again, not in that smug sort of tone where, you're just better than everybody, but in the sense of not being afraid to stand up for what you believe, or not shying away from your beliefs when it comes time to actually like defend them. And not being afraid of other people challenging your beliefs, but then also not being afraid to challenge other people's beliefs. And it's indicative, again, of something else Nietzsche talks about, the herd morality. And I feel like the modern day left and the modern day right, especially within the context of the culture war, are very much their own versions of their own kinds of herd moralities, where if you aren't 100% aligned with the beliefs of your in-group, then you risk ostracism, or you risk being moralized or pathologized for your dissent or deviance. And I just think also that that's how a lot of common sense politics is nowadays, without any of the nuance that I believe is necessary in basically all political discourse. Which is why I think it's important, not necessarily that you have to take a break from social media or all that stuff, but to sort of not become so absorbed in the reactivity of online political discourse and the hostility that comes with that as well. Because it's honestly, it's like poisoning, it's parasitic, and it thwarts your ability to think coherently and independently and reflectively and honestly. And I feel like that pressure that you feel maybe online to portray yourself a certain way, or to allow, or to espouse your beliefs and align yourself politically or philosophically or however in any particular way, becomes less prevalent when you actually just leave that entire sphere altogether, which I think is important for everybody. Not to just always align yourself on the side of the majority, or to tie your identity to some in-group and have the risk of ostracism, and then subsequently you don't know what to do with yourself or who you are or anything. That independence is ultimately the thing that makes you you. And then the minute you start to sell your own convictions or sideline them and parrot something somebody else is saying online, then the minute you are no longer you are what Nietzsche would say, just the party man. But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't care that the reduction in poverty in India is good for the left. I care for the cause itself. I care that there are fewer poor people, if that makes sense. And again, I'm left-leaning in my politics, but I feel no kinship towards the left. And like I said, I think people on the right, there are intelligent people on the right, there are intelligent people on the left. And I think regardless of your political affiliation, you are capable of thinking independently. And I think that's the main thing. Not to get too caught up in the sort of semantics, like the logical entailments of holding certain beliefs and whatnot. All human beings are contradictory in some way, and not everything needs to fit nicely into some schematizing, coherent, syllogistic framework, or this like vast moral or metaphysical system or something like that. I think it's very much okay to hold beliefs that are simultaneously difficult to reconcile, but then at least hold them in the honest conviction that you're not always certain about everything, and that you ultimately though are not just going to side on the side of the majority by virtue of them being the majority. And I know this video is probably extremely incoherent, extremely rambly, and I went on a massive tangent, but that is what this video was going to be from the very start. And I just thought that would be a nice way to round off the year, not like looking at some script or anything. But people are in that sort of that phase now. They want to just maybe do some reflection, or people are partying tomorrow. It's like New Year's Eve and everything. I just thought it'd be a nice, easy going way to round off the year. And yeah, those are basically my thoughts. If you guys have your own thoughts, let me know in the comments. I'm very much open to discussion, and I enjoy engaging with you guys on these kinds of issues or topics. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and Happy New Year. Peace.